When the gate slammed shut behind me, I started making my way to my sister's car. Taking a deep breath, I couldn't help but notice that the air on this side of the wall seemed fresher and sweeter than before. Marcy hugged me and asked, "Before I take you home, is there anything you want to do or go somewhere?" I thought for a moment before answering, "Actually, I wouldn't mind a cold beer." Marcy smiled and said, "I have a Bardee waiting for you." I nodded in agreement, anticipating the pleasure of a cold drink. Leaving the gray stone walls behind, I immersed myself in the memories of what had brought me there. It all happened because of a bitter divorce, a situation that seemed unthinkable on that picturesque July day when Amy walked down the aisle to me, holding hands with her father. Amy and I have been inseparable since second grade, and everyone thought we were destined to be together. Our love story was supposed to have a fabulous ending and the promise of a happy life. We decided to wait until we graduated from college before tying the knot, and also postpone starting a family until we were 30. We wanted to explore the world and experience life before settling down. But things didn't always go smoothly. A couple of times in the 11th grade and in her sophomore year of college, Amy felt the need to see what other guys were like. The incident at the high school lasted only 3 weeks. Eventually, Amy realized her mistake and apologized, admitting that her actions were stupid. "I dated 5 guys and they all turned out to be jerks. I had something wonderful, but I almost ruined it. I was so focused on classes and sports that I didn't even think about dating other girls. I was hurt both times, but when she did it again in college, I decided to explore my options. I soon realized that not all girls are like Amy, who insisted on waiting for marriage. Just 5 weeks later, Bev Holbrook took my virginity. Nancy Newbert showed me her skills, and Harlena Collins taught me various ways of intimacy. Pauline French showed me how to please each other. Nevertheless, deep down, I had a feeling that Amy had also learned this from someone else. I knew it was a double standard, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I should have been the first to experience these things with her. One evening, 6 weeks after Amy left in search of a new relationship, I returned home from class and found her sitting on the porch steps. It was like the déjà vu of my school years. I finally realized that the best man was with me all this time. I'm sorry that I didn't notice this sooner, and I'm sorry. Despite the love I felt for her, we never discussed the time we spent apart. When I tried to start an intimate relationship, she expressed a desire to wait until the wedding, and I respected her wish. I wasn't shocked to learn that she wasn't innocent on our wedding night, but I decided not to bring it up. It seemed to me that she knew that I was aware of her past. After getting a good job in our specialty, we both spent 4 years in a pleasant environment. True, sometimes I had to travel for work, but never for more than 3 days at a time. The day after her 26th birthday, Amy surprised me with the news that she was pregnant. Initially, we planned to wait until we were 30 to start a family, but according to her doctor, the medications she was taking for the flu affected her birth control pills. 9 months later, our son Brian Lewis was born. Amy returned to work after just 6 weeks. She returned to work at the company, where there was a kindergarten on site, which allowed her to take her son Brian with her. 9 months later, she said she would like to have another child so that they would be closer in age and easier to raise. Indifferent to this idea, I agreed. 6 weeks later, she informed me that she was pregnant again. At the 8th month, she decided that 2 children were enough and asked if I would mind if she tied the tubes. I thought it was her decision when it comes to her body, and if she doesn't want to be pregnant for 9 months, I have no right to force her. A month later, Susan Marie came into our lives. As in the case of Brian, Amy took only 6 weeks off from work and then returned with both children in her arms. Over the next 6 years, Amy and I were promoted twice, and our combined income was significant. We seemed like the perfect couple, rarely quarreled and maintained a healthy intimacy in the bedroom. We managed to spend time together about 3 times a week, which, in my opinion, was better than most couples with children who had been married as long as we had. We had common interests, we loved going out and doing things together, and we always looked forward to meeting after work. But one day in July, the illusion of a happy home life and loving relationships was destroyed. I flew to Denver to meet with one of our suppliers and find out what problems he has with meeting delivery deadlines. The trip was supposed to last 3 days. When I arrived at the company, I found that earlier in the day, she had been arrested by the tax service for non-payment of payroll taxes. The company has been experiencing financial difficulties for some time. Disappointed, I turned back to the airport and boarded the next flight home without informing Amy of my imminent return. I had no idea that this decision would lead to an unexpected revelation. I got home at 5:20 p.m., but Amy was still at work. Instead of having dinner at home, I decided to invite Amy and the kids to lunch. I was in our home office when I heard the garage door opener go off, signaling Amy's return. After quickly saving my job and exiting the computer program, I left the office just as Amy entered the house. As I approached, I heard Amy say, "Stop it," to which a male voice replied, "You don't want me to stop, and you know it. In fact, I don't even want to wait until we get to the bedroom. I think I want to do it on the back of your couch." God, Hal, you are without a doubt the most insatiable man I have ever met, and you know I can't resist it. Well, I have to admit it's pretty nice. There was a brief pause in the conversation before the familiar sounds of pleasure filled the room. Oh my God, it feels amazing. When I heard Amy's familiar moans, my heart sank. I grabbed my phone and set it up to shoot, and then headed into the living room. I knew exactly who I would find there. Amy's boss from work. I have already met him and his wife at corporate events. Amy had no idea I was home. Before heading to the airport, I left the car at the dealership to repair the brakes. Since the car wasn't ready until the next day, I had to take a taxi home. They were surprised when I suddenly walked in on them. I managed to take 5 pictures before they noticed me in the room, and 3 more when they hurriedly tried to hide their actions. I put the phone away and walked over to Hal. He understood from my expression what I was going to do, but unfortunately I didn't have time to get between him and the door. He decided not to take off his pants when he decided to make love to Amy. Instead, he just unzipped and started. This allowed him to quickly disappear through the door before I could catch up with him. I probably would have caught up with him, but when I passed Amy, she cunningly stuck out her foot, causing me to stumble. By the time I regained my balance, Hal had already disappeared. Disappointed, I turned and walked past Amy into the kitchen, taking out the phone book from the closet where we kept it. I flipped through the pages until I found Harold Bartram's number. While I was dialing the number on the phone, Amy came into the room and asked, "What are you doing?" I replied, "I'm calling Janet Bartram to share the news with her." "Please don't do this. It will only create problems." "Do you think we have enough problems as it is? I mean the relationship between Hal and Janet. Hal wants to disrupt my life, but I have to be careful not to do the same with his life. That's not the point. There's no need to hurt Janet in any way. She is innocent in this situation. I see it differently. She is married to a lying man, and she needs to face the truth. If she decides to accept it, it will be her decision. But from now on, I plan to make his life miserable. To begin with, I will inform Janet about this and invite her to show proof if she so wishes. After that, I will contact a lawyer and take action against him at his workplace. I believe that your company has rules regarding the relationship between superiors and subordinates, and I will definitely follow up on this. If I find him, I won't hesitate to meet him and beat him up. You shouldn't do this because it will be too expensive for you. Imagine this scenario. If you go to Janet and she kicks him out, I'll kick you out and move him to live with me and our children. If you file a lawsuit against our company and Hal and I get fired, I'll be out of a job and get an advantage in the alimony and child support divorce. If you try to find him and harm him, you will end up in jail for assault. It's better for all of us if we just move on and forget about all this drama. You've got to be kidding. We're going to move on after what I just found out. Why not? Hal and I have a long-standing relationship, and it has never hurt. Our life together is good. I've been a caring wife to you. We have a strong bond, and I really love you. How can you betray me and still claim to love me? Why not? It's true. Hal is nothing more than a physical connection to me. It's an amazing physical connection, and nothing more. It's like pouring salt on a wound. I caught you cheating, and you're criticizing my abilities in the bedroom. I didn't say you weren't good in the bedroom. Then why are you cheating on me with other men? With what other men? Since we got married, I've only been with Hal. You know what I mean. Listen, you're a great guy, a great husband and father, and you're good in bed, but Hal gives me what you can't give. Wonderful, just wonderful. I'm a great husband and father, but I'm just good in bed. It's good to hear. That's not what I meant. You're great in bed. We have a great affinity. Obviously not good enough. I want you to know that you're okay, my love. But Hal satisfies a need that you can't satisfy for me. And what kind of need is that? It's size. Hal has a lot more, and it satisfies me in a way that you can't. But it shouldn't ruin our perfect life together. We can still have a good life as long as I can have my moments with Hal. This has been going on for many years and does not cause any harm. Trust me, we'll be fine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing and shook my head in disbelief. You're incredible, Amy. It's completely unrealistic to think that we can move on after what I witnessed, I said. But I have to admit, I'm curious. You mentioned that this has been going on for many years. How old exactly, and how did it all start? It all started before I met Hal, when I was still in college. We broke up because I wanted to try another relationship. One of the first guys I got involved with was so huge, and let's just say, it made a big impression on me. It seems rich guys like to show off their size, and one guy shared with another about a girl who was impressed by his size. I had to talk to 5 guys like that before I realized that you are the one I want to be with. This raises 2 questions. First of all, if you're so fixated on sizes, why didn't you marry one of them? The answer is simple. They were all jerks. They believed that having a great size in pants was all that mattered, and that a girl should be grateful for the experience. I needed more than just physical intimacy, and because I loved you, I made the difficult decision to break up with others. Question number 2. I can't understand why, after almost 6 weeks of intimate relationships, you suddenly wanted to wait for the wedding. So that despite my love for you, my past experience with men would make me feel wary and disinterested in intimacy. It wasn't fair to you, but that's what I was thinking at the time. Everything was going well until you missed the Christmas party because of a business trip. I think it was in Seattle. Maybe I had too much to drink, but when Hal asked me to dance under the mistletoe and kissed me, I couldn't help being naughty. I could feel his hard bulge pressing against my leg. And then I decided to imitate Mae West and jokingly asked, "Is that a roll of quarters in your pocket? Or are you just glad to see me?" Hal, who was also under the influence, replied that it was much more than a roll of quarters. We both laughed, and I said in response, "That's what everyone says." Then he jokingly said that he could prove it. I grinned again and asked him to prove his claim. He proved it, and I ended up spending the next 2 nights with him. Our passion was strong until he met and married Janet. Despite the fact that we were still flirting with each other, it was only when Janet became pregnant and refused intimacy that we resumed our romance, which never stopped. Honey, and it didn't affect our relationship at all. I need to go to my sister's to pick up the kids. Are you forcing your sister to cover for you while you betray me? Come on, Rob. Don't be ridiculous. She thinks I'm working late. I asked her to look after the children after school. They went straight to her from school, and now I have to follow them. When I come back, I will prove to you that nothing has changed. I stood and stared at her in shock as she headed for her car. Didn't she offend me? Only because I didn't even know about it. Was she really going to prove to me that nothing had changed when she returned? Did she really expect me to settle for less after she was with Hal? By no means. I plugged the phone back in and dialed Janet's number. She was not happy with my news and asked for a meeting to see the photos I had taken. We agreed to meet for lunch the next day. She advised me not to tell Amy about our conversation, as she would most likely tell Hal. As I started to move my things into the guest bedroom, a disturbing thought occurred to me. When Amy threatened to kick me out, her words didn't quite sink in. But on reflection, I realized that she was hinting that the children belonged to her and Hal. Could this be true? I remembered her mentioning her affair with Hal, which happened about a year before she announced she was pregnant with Brian. It suddenly dawned on me that Hal could be the father of my own children. If this turns out to be the case, they will both have something to answer for. When I finished packing my things, Amy returned home with the kids. She saw that I was settled in the guest room. "Why are you putting space between us?" she asked. "I told you that when I come back, I'll show you that nothing has changed. Have you already forgotten what I saw just 2 hours ago? Do you really think I'll take the leftovers after Hal? Come on, Rob. You've never had a problem with this before. Okay, I'll take a shower first." "But you still don't understand, do you? I don't want to have anything to do with your cheating." "You're being unreasonable, Rob. I don't like Hal. I love you. I have a physical relationship with Hal, but it is with you that I have a deeper connection. There was no love in your words when you threatened to kick me out and let Helu move here, and there was no love when you discussed divorce. I wanted to make you think and reconsider your decision before calling Janet. I've been thinking about it, Amy. That's why I moved into another bedroom. We're adults, Rob, and we can sort this out. My feelings for you haven't changed. I still love you, but not enough to bear your betrayal. Please leave me alone, Amy." I left the room and went to the children. I helped them with their homework and then played with the children until bedtime. As soon as they fell asleep, I retired to my new bedroom to get ready for bed. As I turned off the light, I remembered Amy's words. "It's never hurt you before." What a stupid witch, I thought. Just as I was falling asleep, the door opened and Amy came into the room. She climbed into bed, and I felt her naked body pressing against me, trying to grab me. Startled, I quickly pushed her away, causing her to fall off the bed onto the floor. What part of the fact that I don't want to have anything to do with your infidelities is unclear to you? Stay away from me, Amy. I love you, Rob. We can fix everything. No, we can't, Amy. Not a chance. Now go away. She got up and left the room, and I tried to fall asleep. It was a hard night, and in the morning I felt depressed. Amy was already up, cooking breakfast, but I ignored her, took the car keys, and left the house. Before going to work, I had breakfast at a local hotel. Around 10 in the morning, I called my friend Mike Hooper, who was also a lawyer, to share my problems and ask for advice about the divorce. He agreed to meet me at Bud's bar at 5:30 p.m. Then I connected my phone to the computer to transfer the photos of Amy and Bartram, printed out 3 sets, and put them in envelopes. By noon, I arrived at Mario's and found Janet already waiting for me. She stood up to greet me, and I kissed her on the cheek, and then said, "Of course, I would like to see you under happier circumstances." We had a light conversation until we ordered, and then I told her about the events of the previous day. I handed her the envelope with the photos I had taken, and she studied them with amazing calmness. After returning the photos to the envelope, she asked, "What are you going to do?" I replied, "Divorce her." She asked, "Is there any chance of reconciliation?" I replied, "No," after I saw it firsthand. Then she noticed, "Well, I guess I'll have to do the same. This is not the first time his reckless behavior has caused problems. The last time he did that, I forgave him, but I warned him that if this happens again, he will leave my life forever. You may not even have the opportunity to kick him out yourself. I will look for him, and if I find him, I will not hesitate to give him a beating. He might even end up in the hospital, so pack up all his things and leave them in the hospital room. And if you catch him, give him a couple of punches in the groin on my behalf. I promised her that I would do so before we got up and left. My conversation with Mike only confirmed what I already knew. In our state, without the guilt of the guilty, everything will be divided equally. Amy will get the children, and I will support them. But since our incomes are the same, I will not have to pay alimony or separate maintenance, as it is called in our state. When I expressed my concerns about the paternity of the children, he suggested that I get a DNA test. I provided him with 2 sets of photographs and demanded to sue Bartram for alienation of affection. In addition, I wanted the company they both worked for to be sued for non-compliance with the policy prohibiting close relationships between superiors and subordinates, as specified in their labor code. Are you sure you want to do this? This could lead to Amy losing her job and you having to pay separate alimony. I don't care, Mike, just do it. We discussed other issues and he advised me not to leave the house and not to give it to her. I can't kick her out because of the kids, so I should try to do my best to live together until the divorce situation clears up and the court gives instructions. Let the court determine who will stay and who will leave. The judicial system of this state usually gives preference to the wife in cases involving children, so you can expect an uphill legal battle, my friend. Have you really exhausted all possibilities for reconciliation with Amy? Perhaps the photos do not convey the fullness of what I witnessed. The memories are imprinted in my memory, leaving no possibility for a reunion. It is best to start the process and immediately hand her a summons. If possible, try to hand it over at the workplace. Amy's behavior after my return home was far from joyful. You didn't have to do that. We could have settled everything and moved on, but you decided to tell Janet. In the end, she kicked him out because of your actions. Not because of mine, Amy, but because you slept with him. I'm sorry that he was kicked out. It will only complicate his search, and when I find him, be sure that your favorite huge dignity won't be able to work for a while. Remember, Rob, I warned you. That night, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, when everyone else in the house was still asleep. Quietly, with the help of cotton swabs, I took swabs from the cheeks of my children, who were fast asleep. On the way to work, I dropped off the swabs at a local lab and even offered to pay extra for accelerated testing. Amy's warning, "Just remember that I warned you, Rob," stuck in my head and prompted me to act. By 9 in the morning, I was at the bank when the doors opened. I emptied all the accounts in the safe and then opened a new account in my name only at another bank on the next street. I will have to account for him later in the divorce, but at least I will have the means to pay for the house and take care of the children. When I returned to work, it dawned on me, and I quickly canceled all our shared credit cards so that Amy wouldn't accumulate cash debts. It turned out to be a wise decision, because that evening a man came up to me, handed me an envelope, and informed me that a temporary injunction had been imposed on me. Opening the envelope, I found a restraining order forbidding me to approach the house, Amy and the children within 500 feet. It was obvious that her lawyer was more effective than Mike's lawyer, although later I realized that none of us had assumed the urgency of the situation. Amy, who was standing outside the house, looked at me with a smirk as I pulled the car out of the driveway. When I got to the corner, I called Mike on my cell phone, told him about the situation, and asked for advice on how to pick up my things from home. He mentioned that he had contacts in the sheriff's department and promised to look into the situation and contact me. During our phone conversation, I asked him to change the reason for our divorce from irreconcilable differences to adultery. I also urged him to take aggressive legal action against Bartram, Amy, and the Bartram Company. "Burn them, Mike. Burn them," I stressed. 15 minutes later, he called me back and informed me that 2 deputies would arrive within 30 minutes to ensure my access to the house. But until he contacts someone from the court to arrange further action, he informed me that I could only take clothes and toiletries from home. Soon, 2 patrol cars drove up to the house. I started the car and parked behind them, as instructed. The assistants introduced themselves and advised me to wait until they called me before approaching the house. They rang the doorbell and talked to Amy, after which they invited me to enter the house. They reminded me that I could only take my clothes and toiletries, after which they escorted me into the house. On the way to the stairs, I happened to look into the kitchen to check on the children. To my surprise, they weren't there, but Hal was. He was sitting at the kitchen table drinking the beer I bought. Despite my anger, I refrained from confronting him, realizing that it would be unwise when two deputies were around. Amy followed me up the stairs and watched me pack my things. Maybe it was childish, but I couldn't resist saying it without looking him in the eye. "You've ruined everything, Amy. You really screwed up this time." I spent most of the day in the office thinking about our relationship, and eventually came to the conclusion that we should talk and try to work things out. "You claimed to love me, but your actions suggest otherwise, Amy. Mental cruelty, a restraining order. Now we have no hope. Think about it after I walk out the door. We were so close to saving our relationship, but you ruined it." After I saw him sitting in the kitchen drinking my beer, I made a final decision. I packed my suitcase, left the house, and left. The next day, Amy called me at work. "After what you said yesterday, I feel the need to talk to you." "Unfortunately, Amy, that's not going to happen. Your actions towards me yesterday, as well as the fact that he was sitting in our house and received a restraining order, destroyed any chance that we could talk. I can't get closer than 500 feet to you, remember? Goodbye, Amy." 2 days later, I returned to the house with the court-appointed guards to collect my belongings. The whole time I was there, she insisted on sitting down and talking to me. I ignored her until I finished loading the last things into the U-Haul car. We were in the bedroom when she begged me, saying that we could sort things out if I just talked to her. I asked her to come closer and pointed to the bathroom in the bedroom. Her expression changed when she saw what I was pointing at. There were men's toiletries on the counter that didn't belong to me, but they weren't mine. "Goodbye, Amy. Just remember that the consequences you're facing are the result of your own actions, and they could have been prevented." After that, events began to develop rapidly. Amy was handed papers at her workplace, charging her with adultery. Hal was also handed papers at his job, suing for alienation of affection. Their employer was also sued for non-compliance with the rules of relations between superiors and subordinates, which eventually led to the breakup of my marriage. Just 3 days later, both Hal and Amy were fired from their jobs. Hal, Amy's boss, found himself in a difficult situation, but Amy began to fight against her dismissal, claiming that Hal threatened to deprive her of her job if she did not do as he said. Despite her efforts, the company supported her dismissal. Amy decided to go to court and filed a lawsuit against the company for wrongful dismissal. Both Amy and Hal seemed to agree with the chosen strategy, as they continued to live together in our house during the trial. 3 weeks later, a hearing was held to extend the temporary ban, but the judge refused and criticized Amy's lawyer for filing a lawsuit at all. A week later, we attended a preliminary hearing in the divorce case. Mike warned me that the result might not be in my favor. Most likely, Amy will receive temporary custody of the children and full right to use the house until the terms of the divorce are finalized. In addition, you will be responsible for paying for the house and utilities, and it is likely that you will be required to pay temporary alimony and child support. Her lawyer insists on the return of the money withdrawn from the accounts, which will probably be considered by the judge. I handed him the envelope and mentioned, "This may affect the alimony situation." Opening it and reading the contents, he exclaimed sympathetically, "My God, Rob, I'm so sorry for you. Do you even know who the biological father is?" "I bet that's the one who lives with Amy in our house." The outcome of this hearing may not have a significant impact, as this is just a preliminary hearing. The Child Protection Service will have to confirm the authenticity of the documents, but the final decision will be influenced by the information provided. Do I have an opportunity to speak? Yes, but I would advise you to be careful in your expressions. The situation was developing exactly as Mike had predicted. Amy got a house and temporary custody of the children. I was told to give Amy half of the funds that I had withdrawn from our checking and savings accounts, although I wisely kept silent about some of the certificates of deposit. Amy's lawyer tried to get me to pay for his services, but Mike intervened and objected. My client was not the initiator of the divorce process. It was his wife who sued him. Therefore, she must be responsible for her legal costs. We were glad when the judge ruled in our favor, causing a slight smile on my face. When the judge, on the recommendation of the Child Protection Service, ordered me to pay alimony, Mike objected and presented a DNA test proving that I was not the biological father of the children. I was ordered to temporarily pay alimony until the CPS checks the documents. If the documents turn out to be authentic, all the alimony you have paid will be deducted from your wife's share in the distribution. I watched Amy's reaction when Mike mentioned the paternity of the children, and she didn't show any surprise. It was clear that she had known about this from the very beginning. In conclusion, the judge asked if I understood the court's orders. I understood the ruling, but its justification caused me confusion. Why did my unfaithful wife get custody of our children? Living with a woman who put her lover in the house on the same day she filed for divorce is not in the best interests of the children. What kind of example is this for them? It hasn't been 6 weeks since we broke up, and she already has another man in bed. And why should I continue to keep a house just so that the man my wife cheated on me with has a place to stay? The judge only ordered the Child Protection Service to study my testimony and submit a report within 10 days. As we were leaving the courtroom, Amy came up to me and whispered, "How could you do this to your children?" I replied, "They're not mine, Amy. I saw your reaction when Mike mentioned DNA. There was no surprise on your face, no surprise at all. You knew the truth from the very beginning. Just make sure I have the money tomorrow," she said, and left. She didn't know that she wouldn't see a cent of that money anytime soon. I realized that I could delay the situation for several weeks before I was taken to court and charged with contempt of court if I refused to pay. It seemed to me that I could even delay the process and win another week or two. The day after the court hearing, Mike contacted me and informed me that Amy's former employer had offered a settlement agreement. Although it was somewhat lower than expected, I thought we could negotiate a better deal. Since you are an expert in these matters, I trust your opinion on how to proceed. To be honest, initially I wanted to get back at Amy and Bertram, so I was pleased to know that they were fired. Since we have raised this topic, we need to understand that it is pointless to try to get money from Bartram since he is unemployed, and all that he can get will most likely go to alimony and the maintenance of his wife. Despite this, it is important to continue to pursue him and get him to hire a lawyer. If we succeed in court, we can get a ruling against him that will hang over him like a dark cloud. Mike's mention of Hal's alimony situation reminded me to contact Janet. I called her. During our conversation, she said that things were not easy. Hal is unemployed and does not fulfill payments ordered by the court. Fortunately, I withdrew all the money from the bank accounts before kicking him out. Unfortunately, I have some bad news. It turns out that Hal is the biological father of my children, and it looks like he will have to pay Amy alimony when my divorce is finalized. However, he may not have to do this since they live together. Living together? I didn't know about it. How's your court case going against Hal's former company? I don't have any lawsuits against them. I explained the situation to her. She appreciated the information and said that her lawyer would investigate. Then I said, "If you need my help, let me know." "I hope you're not hinting at what I think." "What do you mean?" "If my husband slept with your wife, it doesn't mean that I'm going to do it to you to get back at him." "It's terrible to think like that. I apologize for bothering you." I ended the conversation. The comment she made before hanging up the phone made me feel disgusted and put me in a bad mood that persisted all day. By the time I finished my work, I was filled with anger and the desire to vent it. I made the decision to finally meet with Hal and deal with him. Knowing that he was now unemployed and would be looking for her, I took time off from work and settled down on the next street from home at 6 in the morning. The kids left for school at 7:20 a.m., and at 8 a.m., I noticed Hal driving his Chevrolet Blazer out of my garage. Unnoticed, I followed him to the parking lot in the city center, where I parked a few places later. When I got out of the car, I ducked down to remain unnoticed. When he came to the elevator, I stood up and said, "Good morning, Hal," I said, my tone full of malice. "At least for me, but I'm not sure it will be kind to you." He tried to run away, but I quickly caught him, turned him around and forcefully pushed him against a solid concrete pillar. In a fit of anger, I vented my rage on him, striking a series of blows. The final blow was delivered with 6 ruthless kicks to the groin, after which he writhed on the ground in agony. Unsurprisingly, 2 police officers arrived at my workplace the next day and arrested me for assault and battery. After spending the night in prison, the next day I appeared in court. The charges were read out loud, and when I was asked to admit my guilt, I confidently declared, "Not guilty." "Are you sure you want to deny the charges? Mr. Bartram is convinced that you attacked him." "I did hit him, but I don't consider myself guilty of assault and battery." "Really? Then how would you describe it?" "I was convinced that justice had prevailed." "I don't understand your logic." "He had an affair with my wife for many years." "He is the father of 2 children, whom he and my future ex-wife made me believe were mine, and he had to take responsibility for that. Although there may not be a law against adultery in this state, I was determined to seek justice on my own terms. In this situation, the legal system has failed me. My wife cheated on me for many years, but the court awarded her the house and ordered me to pay for it and its upkeep. When she moved her lover to her place, I found myself forced to financially support him as well. Perhaps the law was not on my side, but I did not want to leave this injustice unanswered. I am obliged to pay alimony to my ex-wife, who is cheating on me, and when the divorce is finalized, she will receive half of our property. It seems unfair to me that she gets rewarded for her infidelity, and I get punished. Apparently, the legal system is on her side, and I feel cheated. If the law does not provide me with justice, then I will have to look for it on my own. You broke the law anyway, and now you admit it. No, I don't admit it. I'm just looking for justice, which is rightfully mine. I'm ready to tell my story to the jury and let them make a decision. You may be hungry for a trial, but I don't want to waste the resources of the court on it. You openly confessed to assaulting him, so I have no choice but to find you guilty and send you to the Fairmont County Jail for 6 months. Thank you. What was that? You really helped me get justice for my wife. She will not receive any alimony or child support for the next 6 months. I won't be able to pay for the house, and she, having lost her job, won't be able to contribute either. As a result, the house will be foreclosed on, and she and her lover will be homeless. In addition, if I serve a 6-month prison sentence, I will lose my job, which will further complicate the financial situation. So yes, thank you. Are you really ready to part with the capital of your house? What capital? We took the second one to put in central air conditioning and a swimming pool. If we had sold it, we would have raised enough money to cover the costs and fees, and maybe there would have been a small amount left to divide it between us. Personally, I would prefer that she did not even receive this amount. In any case, I have nothing to gain from this. By the time I get out of prison, I will owe her 6 months of overdue alimony, and I am sure that the legal system will make sure that all the money I receive from the sale is confiscated and transferred to her to repay the debt. The judge just shook his head. I served 4 months in the county jail. Mike visited me once a week, and during the 3rd visit, he mentioned an offer from Amy's previous company that he thought we should accept. I agreed, instructing him to cash the check immediately and hide the money so that Amy couldn't get to it. Suddenly, Amy showed up to visit me at the end of my 1st month in prison. The visiting rules were strict and required a pre-approved list of visitors, so her appearance came as a surprise. If someone not on the list wanted to visit me, I was asked if I wanted to see him first. Although Amy wasn't on my list, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to get to know her. When I sat down opposite her in the visitor's room, where a partition separated us, Amy greeted me with a smile. "Orange is not your color," she remarked, to which I replied, "My wardrobe is limited here. Amy, what do you need?" "I need help getting the money," she replied. "We need to pay for the house and pay the utility bills. I'm trying my best to find a job, but things are very tight. I barely have time to feed the children." So what? If that jerk had just accepted his punishment for sleeping with my wife instead of arresting me, I wouldn't have gotten into this mess, and you wouldn't have worried about money. It's his fault that I'm here, so go and ask him to help you with your financial problems. And as for feeding the children, that's his responsibility. Let him take care of them. How can you say that? He's their biological father, of course, but you're their real father. You're the only father they've ever known. They have no idea who Hal is. All they know is that he's in our house and that you're sleeping with him. I remind you, you are still my husband. I mean, you're their father, Rob. You were a loving and supportive father to them from the very beginning, and you cared deeply for them until you found out about Hal and me. You can't just turn that love off, Rob. The children have done nothing to deserve your anger. Feel free to hate me, but please don't take it out on them. Amy, the fact is that if I allocate money for food, then not only children will eat it. You and Bartram will win too. You were too dear to me to harm you like Bartram, but I won't feel remorse if you both starve. Do you care that we might lose the house if you don't help? The same house you kicked me out of? The same house where you met your lover? This house doesn't mean much to me now that you've put Bartram there. You need to start looking for a job, Amy, and push Bartram to contribute since he's the head of the family now. It's hard for him to find a job, and Janet takes everything he's given. But at least he has that big instrument that you seem to adore, so it's not a complete loss for you. This is a joke, Rob. After what you've done, he's not the same as he was before. Oh my God, Amy. I'm really sorry that I ruined your life. What does it say? Life is a scary thing. I got up and left. The only person who visited me regularly was my sister Megan. She came once a week, and during one of her visits, about 3 weeks after Amy's visit, she mentioned that Amy had reached out to her. Amy asked Megan to talk to me and convince me to give her some money. She promised that they would be used only for children. Think about helping. I don't want the children to suffer, Megan begged. When I am released, my goal is to achieve full custody of the children. My strategy is based on proving that their mother is incapable of taking care of them and sets a negative example by living in an extramarital affair with Bartram. If she and their biological father are unable to provide even basic needs, the court will definitely consider granting me custody. The fact that I am ready to take responsibility for their upbringing, despite the fact that Bartram is the biological father, testifies to my deep love and desire to ensure their well-being. If I help her, it will only harm my ultimate goal. I refuse to believe everything she says because I don't trust her. For more than 6 years, she betrayed me with a smile on her face, so I can't trust a word she says. Will you be angry if I help them? I'm in custody, Megan. I can't control your actions. Megan helped them, but not financially. She bought clothes for the children and sometimes brought them groceries. Through Megan, I found out that Amy has found a good job, but the family is still experiencing difficulties. Because Bartram gave up looking for a job because he couldn't find one that would meet his standards. Despite the availability of vacancies, they either did not meet his expectations or did not offer sufficient pay. Megan learned from the children that Bartram and Amy often quarreled because he was loafing at home. I thought it was funny. In the 3rd month, I had an unexpected guest, Janet, who arrived on the day of the visit. Since she was not on the list of allowed visitors, I was asked if I would mind meeting her. Curiosity, as in the case of Amy, made me agree to meet with her. I couldn't help but wonder why she wanted to see me after our last conversation. Sitting across from her, I felt déjà vu when she remarked, "Orange is not your color." I've heard that before, I chuckled. What brings you here? Guilt. Feeling guilty? What do you feel guilty about? That I treated you badly back then. Oh? When did this happen? When was the last time we talked on the phone? I had a bad mood and a negative attitude towards men in general. But despite my disappointment, I understand that I had no right to say what I said, and I apologize. It certainly pissed me off, but by and large, nothing terrible happened. On another note, I would like to express my gratitude for the small service you unknowingly rendered me. Maybe you didn't know about it, but you gave me a little joy. One of my former college sisters works as a nurse in our doctor's office, where Hal still goes for appointments. She informed me that Hal had sought help from Dr. Marlin about his erection problems. It seems that you have damaged his private parts, which has made it difficult for him to maintain an intimate life. I'm glad to know that he can no longer use what he used to betray me. Perhaps you will be satisfied with the fact that your wife does not feel any pleasure from what she cheated on you for. It really gives me satisfaction. We chatted a little more before she left, and she asked me to contact her as soon as I was free. I served 4 months in the county jail and was released early. I was found eligible for release because I had served 2/3 of my sentence, and despite the fact that I was convicted of assault, a crime of cruelty, I did not pose a threat to society. Mike, my friend, was waiting to pick me up after I was released. He took me to a weekly fee motel, where I rented a room until I found an apartment. During the trip, Mike brought me up to date on the latest developments. Amy is not contesting the divorce, but she plans to fight for custody of the children, alimony, and even child benefit. Although I doubt she will succeed. Now that you're free, I'm going to apply for a hearing, and it's only a matter of time. Have you already decided what to do with the check from Amy's employer? Just keep it in a safe place where Amy won't be able to access it until the divorce is finalized. Now that you're free, you can count on being dragged through the courts again because of the payments I have to pay Amy. It's not a problem. I will explain this by saying that I could not get money for her while I was in custody. They may object that it was possible to negotiate. Should I tell a woman where I keep my money? By no means. I think she would have found a way to take all the money, especially considering how the courts in this state bend to women. It would certainly have helped her. The man I once trusted betrayed me. I can't count on her not hurting me if the opportunity presents itself. I went to my workplace to ask Frank about the availability of vacancies. He rudely told me not to bother him with stupid questions and to go to work. Later that day, I called Amy to ask for a meeting with the children, but she laughed and said that I would only be able to see them when I had the money. Disappointed, I broke off the conversation and contacted the Child Protection Service, saying that Amy was denying me access to children. I was told that it was her decision. If she decided not to let me see them, she has the right to do so. After examining your documents, we have confirmed that they are correct. She is the mother, and you are not the biological father, so she has the right in this situation. The court will determine your rights to visit the child, if any. The question of whether you are required to pay alimony will also be decided by the court. Since you are currently required to pay alimony by court order, you will have to attend a court hearing to overturn this decision. Judging by your attitude, I'm unlikely to be given custody of them, right? I have no right to discuss possible court recommendations. I thanked her for her time and ended the conversation. I called Amy and assured her that I would come at 7 to visit the children and take the money with me. I won't leave you alone with them. I'll be there all the time. I withdrew $500 from the bank and put it in an envelope. Quickly, at 7, I rang the doorbell, and Amy met me on the threshold. I handed her the envelope with the money, and she stepped aside to let me in. When I entered the living room, I was stunned to see Bartram sitting. I tried to keep my composure, but I'm not sure my shock didn't show on my face. He looked at me, then abruptly stood up and quickly left the room. Brian and Susan were sitting on the couch and looking at me. It's been more than 4 months since I last saw them, and I expected them to joyfully run to me, shouting, "Daddy, Daddy!" Instead, they stayed where they were, and then Susan said the words that eventually led to my incarceration. "Why did you offend our dad?" "I always thought I was your father." Mom explained to us that this is not the case, and that Hal's father is our real father. Amy grinned when I looked at her. Disappointed, I turned away from the children and headed for the door. Amy giggled and said, as I passed her, I quickly snatched the envelope from her hands and angrily muttered, "Go to hell, you worthless trash." From that moment on, the situation escalated rapidly. I was taken to court and ordered to pay Amy the amount set by the court, as well as alimony. I told the judge emphatically that I would rather die than give a penny to a promiscuous woman. He warned me that I had to comply or face contempt charges. Striking with a hammer, the judge announced, "You have a choice, pay $500 or serve 30 days in prison." I chose the latter. Almost a month later, I was back in the courtroom in front of the judge. When asked if my position had changed, I replied, "To some extent." The judge pressed on, demanding an explanation. "I am determined not to pay child support for children who, as the court has confirmed, are not mine, and the CPS can confirm that I am not their father. I am willing to pay, but I will not make payments for the house while her lover lives with my wife. I refuse to pay his living expenses. If he is evicted from the house, I will make payments." "Are you saying that the CPS knows that you are not the father of the children?" "They know. I will postpone the hearing until I can verify this with the CPS." As I was being escorted out of the courtroom, I noticed the expression on Amy's face. She was furious when she found out that the alimony decision would be made in my favor. She was so sure that she would win again. The next morning I was back in court, but the results were not what I had hoped. The CPS investigation report revealed that I am not the father of the children and that Hal actually lives with Amy. The judge canceled child support and reduced the amount of Amy's alimony by a third, giving them retroactive effect. But I still had to pay alimony and mortgage payments. 2 days later, I finally got the opportunity I dreamed of. Amy left for work shortly after the kids left for school, and at 8:30 a.m., Bartram drove out of the garage in his Blazer and drove away. As soon as he was out of sight, I quickly lifted the garage door and pressed the open button, which surprisingly worked. Closing the door behind me, I drove the car into the garage and, taking both 5-gallon cans of gasoline from the trunk, headed into the house. After thoroughly dousing the house from the inside, I took the car out of the garage. Back at the house, I set it on fire and then drove to the airport. After parking my car in a long-term parking lot, I boarded a flight to Panama City, where I spent a month basking in the sun and getting carried away with romance. On the last day of my stay in Panama City, I went to the bank to rent a safe deposit box, paying for it 10 years in advance. Before leaving for Florida, I emptied all my accounts and hid the money in a safe. I knew perfectly well that my actions would most likely lead to me serving time, but I didn't care because I wanted to hurt Amy. She would have lost everything because of the fire, and there was no insurance to cover the damage. I knew she would seek retribution, but imprisonment meant she would get nothing from me. Even after my release, it will be difficult for her to get any payment from me. Back in town, I went to work to pick up my personal belongings and apologized to Frank. He sympathized with me because he had gone through a difficult divorce himself. He asked if I had solved my problems and was ready to return to work. Unfortunately, I informed him that I would most likely spend some time in prison. When he asked about the reason, I explained. He chuckled and expressed admiration for my courage. I called Mike and suggested we meet for lunch. When we were sitting at Mario's restaurant, he noticed, "You should have stayed where you were." The judge regarded your actions as contempt of court because he specifically ordered you to maintain the house. The district attorney is bringing numerous charges against you, including arson and destruction of private property. Amy wants revenge and wants you to be severely punished. How can they prove arson? The house belongs to me, and I did not commit insurance fraud. I canceled my insurance so that I would not be responsible for any expenses. The mortgage company is probably upset because they no longer have collateral for the loan, but I am still responsible for it and made the payment for this month only last week. As long as I keep making payments, they have no reason to worry. This is my property, and I have the right to make decisions on it. You may think so, but the court is unlikely to share your point of view. He turned out to be right, and after spending a month, I finally entered into a plea agreement, according to which I was sent to the Albion State Correctional Colony for 3 years. Despite the fact that after serving half of the sentence, I was eligible for parole, I refused this offer. I did not want to expose myself to the judicial system, which I had already despised, and to endure the constant threat of being sent back for non-compliance with the rules or violation of parole. I served a 2.5-year sentence, suspended for good behavior. During my time in prison, I was regularly visited by Mike, my sister, and even Frank, who constantly urged me to come to him as soon as I was released. Janet also visited me several times and insisted that I call her as soon as I was free. While in prison, I managed to file for bankruptcy and was able to overturn all court decisions against me, except for one issued by the tax service. It turned out that the requirement to pay interest on the house, which no longer existed at the time of filing the declaration, was a violation of the rules of the tax service. Surprisingly, even in prison, the tax service still requires you to file taxes if you had at least some income for the year. Sitting with Megan at a table in Bud's bar, I sipped a cold drink, and she asked me about my next steps. Go to Frank's and get back to work, and find an apartment to start an active social life. Do you plan to see the children? I hesitated. Probably not. Amy left her mark on them, and now it's hard to see them without bumping into her. The very thought of meeting Amy causes a violent reaction in me. She doesn't want to see you either. She's still angry and wants to hurt you for destroying everything that belonged to her. But she's changed in the last few years. She deeply regrets the way things turned out. She believed that she could get both you and him. But now she realized her mistake. She says she loved you, and insists that her relationship with him was purely physical and should have remained a secret. She even mentioned that she wouldn't mind if you continued to communicate with Brian and Susan. Well, isn't that a lot of stupidity on her part, especially considering that she told them that I'm not really their father? Be lenient with her, Rob. What she did is no different from what you did. You both acted out of spite, and the children found themselves in the middle of things. They spent a few weekends with me, and obviously they miss you. You really need to establish a relationship with them. I don't want to see Amy, but if you can arrange with her to take the kids and leave them with you, we'll see how it goes. I visited Frank and he said I could come back when I was ready. I asked for a week to get used to it. I flew to Panama City to collect money from a safe deposit box and then returned home. After settling the problems with the tax service, renting an apartment and reuniting with the children, I contacted Janet and invited her to dinner. Although Janet and I went on several dates, it became clear that it was better for us to remain friends. In the end, I found a girl who is willing to accept my children as her own. Looks like I'm walking down the aisle with her soon. I am grateful to her for her willingness to accept my family. Yes, my children are with me now. After 2 years of Amy and Hal's marriage, he returned home early in the morning and found Amy in bed with another man. Unlike me, he didn't reach for his cell phone to capture the betrayal. Instead, he pulled out a gun and tragically ended the lives of both. Since there is no death penalty in our state, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Every month I send him a box of cigarettes and a thank you card. When Amy passed away, I successfully petitioned the court for custody of their children, who now live with me. Everything seems to have worked out in the end, at least for some of us.